Hello, my name is Jim McGillivray and this is the Pipe Box, your source for all things piping. If you like this video, please give it a like and please subscribe to this YouTube channel to see more videos like this. There's a handout associated with this video and you can download this handout by going back to the description of this video on my YouTube channel. You will see a link to a PDF there. Today we are going to talk about this little baby here, the pipe chanter reed. It's absolutely the heart of your bagpipe. Back in my competing days, I would say my competing pipe chanter reed at any given time was the most important possession I owned. That's how important it was to me. I used to order 6 reeds from Captain John McClellan in Edinburgh. He would send me the 6 reeds. I would get at least 1 really good performance reed out of it and 2 good practice reeds. I would have to manipulate these very little because John McClellan knew how to make a good solo chanter reed. Manipulation for me came later on when I joined St. Andrew's College and was teaching 15, 20, 25 boys pipes at once. Developing reed manipulation skills was very important and remains important to me today. Today we are going to meet a reed maker. We're going to talk to this reed maker about reed selection, about how a reed is made, about how to manipulate a reed to make it easier or even change the pitch of some notes. Alastair Murray hails from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He's originally from a farming community in County Down, Northern Ireland. He moved to Pittsburgh in 2012 to be with his wife. He's an excellent reed maker. He's also an excellent player, having had tuition from Bill Livingston, Mike Cusick, Willie McCallum, and Andrew Wright. Okay, let's meet Alastair and learn a little bit more about the reed making process. Alastair, welcome to the Pipe Box. It's great to have you here. Could you tell us a little bit about how long you've been making reeds and where you learned this skill?
Hi Jim, thanks very much for having me. I first started with reeds whenever I first moved to the States with Jerry Gibson, the pipe maker up in Ohio. We started by reverse engineering reeds that he had and I had, and he made me some tools. In 2014, when I was in Australia with the City of Whitehorse Pipe Band, I ended up sharing a room with the late John Elliott of G1. He put me in touch with Robert Haim in Scotland, who made a lot of Reedmaker's tools, where we came up with a system that worked for me and went from there. I've always been interested in tone and sound, and I've always been known for having a good bagpipe, so it was just a natural sort of a step to make my own reeds.
Thank you, Alastair. That's a very good pedigree of reed making instructors you've had. Tell me, as a reed maker, when you're going through a batch of reeds to pick out a reed for yourself, what kinds of things are you looking for in that reed?
Good question, Jim. So whenever I'm going through a batch of reeds and picking one out, even for myself or when I'm sending out for customers, the first thing I do is take a visual look at it and inspect the reed. I want to make sure that the mouth opening is correct, not too big and not too small. And then looking at things like the lips, making sure that it's sealed on both sides and down the sides. And then whenever I blow into a reed, I want it to be free blowing. I don't want it to take too much pressure to clear from that raspy sound into a clear note. Something like this. That would be the first step, making sure that it's free blowing, it's a nice clear tone, and it's reactive to a change in pressure.
Thanks, Alastair. I find it interesting that when you blow the reed in your mouth, you like to hear the crow, but then you like to blow right through the crow without putting a lot of pressure into the reed. That's quite different from when I grew up. We were taught to blow the crow and to not be able to blow through the crow. So of course, often we ended up with reeds that were far too strong with us. So that brings up the issue of strength. More experienced pipers, they know by blowing a reed in their mouth whether it's too strong or too weak for them. Inexperienced pipers don't have that skill yet. What's a good way for less experienced pipers to know if a reed is too strong for them or not?
What I might call an easy, someone might call a medium, and vice versa. The main thing is to be comfortable. I would never say there's any right or wrong when it comes to what strength of reed you blow. I know some people say you have to blow a heavier reed to get a bigger sound, and I don't think that's true. It's a lot to do with the freeness of the reed and the quality of the reed that produces the sound. A good way to measure is a tool like this. These are made by, I know Chris Apps does a really good one, which this is who made this one. And this will tell you the inches of water that you blow. I myself blow round about a 28, So another good way is whenever you blow the reed, if you can get through between 4 and 6 or 8 bars of Scotland to Brave, that's usually round about a medium reed, round about 30 inches of water. Again, it all depends on your lung capacity, but this is where reed manipulation really does come into its own, is that if you get a reed that is a wee bit too stiff, persevere with it firstly before you start to manipulate the reed. I always feel that it's better to have a reed that's slightly on the harder side to start than something that's perfect, because once you've blown that reed in, it's going to be easier. So truly, strength is down to the individual person. Get a ballpark and then use the manipulation tools, which we're going to discuss in the upcoming videos.
Your point about being comfortable is well taken. I like to point out that if we watch top professional players play in competition, they all look very comfortable. Comfort is much more conducive to playing good music than pain is. Top players are also able to play for long periods of time without stopping. It's not uncommon to see a recitalist play for 45 or 50 minutes without stopping their bagpipe at all. So yeah, comfort is paramount. Tell us a little bit about the blowing in process of a reed. How long you blow a reed in for? Do you start to manipulate it right from the start, or do you have a period of time where you just blow and don't touch the reed?
Yeah, when you watch the greats like Donald McPherson play, it's just so effortless. It just looks like they're blowing into the bag, and comfort's the main thing. So yeah, when blowing in a reed, the thing for me is to give a reed time. You have to think about what a reed's went through to get to you. From my bench to your chanter could take a week, depending on where it's being posted to, or if it's bought through a retailer like yourself. So the first thing I do when I get a reed is I give it moisture, just through breathing on it and maybe a wee lick or two to make sure that the reed's regenerated. What can happen in transit is that the reed can either open up or it can close down. So a wee bit of moisture will help put it back to where it was whenever I set it from my bench. After that, I blow it, and if it's, for me, when I'm picking a brand new reed, I always like to go a wee bit harder than what I'm comfortable with, so that it blows in and it'll ease up over the week or so of blowing in. I would say a reed should blow in anywhere from 5 days to 10 days. There's no real set time. Each piece of cane's different. We're not dealing with man-made products, we're dealing with natural products, so a harder cane's going to take longer to break in. The main thing is patience. I like to make sure that I'm blowing it and giving it plenty of moisture and enough time to reset back to where it was. And that'll take maybe 2 or 3 sessions. I'm a great believer in pinching a reed rather than shaving it at the start. I don't rush to the knife, and I don't rush to putting dental bands on the reeds. I like to try to do it naturally through blowing in process and pinching the reed. For me, a reed when blown in that way will last a lot longer. The reed I currently play is about 6 or 7 years old. So if you put a wee bit of time in at the start, then it will pay off in the long run.
I see, that's a fairly long time to blow in a reed. You're looking at, as you said, 5 to 10 separate playing sessions. Now, if the reed is a little bit too hard, you pinch it to make it blowable. Let's say pinching is not doing it for you and the reed is still too hard to go through the blowing in process. What might you do to ease the reed up at that point?
So you've got a reed that's just not blowing in and it's still a wee bit hard. I would recommend using a small dental band. Something like this that you can get from most pipe retailers, or you can get them online on eBay and things like that. So what I do if the reed's just a wee bit too hard, it's taking a fair bit of air there to get through a couple of bars. So I stretch it over my 2 fingers, gently put it over the reed, twist it once, twice, so that it's putting a wee bit of pressure on the blades and closing the mouth up. I have it just in the base there, so you can see where that is. It's not too far up and it's not going to restrict the sound box or crush the fibres if you put it on too tight. That's one thing that's very important when you're using rubber bands, is not to put them on too tight. If you put them on too tight, then it's going to crush the fibres and it can do damage to the reed. So I can quite comfortably now get through 4 bars of Scotland the Brave, and it hasn't really affected the balance too much. I'm just going to take a wee bit of tape off the high A. So it's still got good balance to it, and it hasn't affected the volume. I would start there.
That dental band trick is one I've used for years and years with our pipers here at St. Andrew's College. I find it's a great way to ease a reed up temporarily while it's being blown in for that 5 to 10 days of blowing in. As you mentioned, Alastair, it will knock the chanter out of balance if you slide the rubber band too far up the blades. It will make the top hand sharp. But it's a great tool to have in your little toolbox. Okay, so Alastair, let's say now I'm working with my band and I have a very young piper who needs a very easy reed, and all I have are very hard reeds, and I'm down to needing to shave a reed. What's your approach to shaving reeds?
Good question. Well, if you've got a reed that's still a wee bit too strong after you've broken it in and it's taking a wee bit more coaxing to get that clear note, I start to shave just in the sound box from the ramp down to the binding on the sides, taking even bits off. Now it would be hard for me to show you on the camera, but I'm just going to take a wee bit off each side and show you. Make sure you do even on both sides. You're just taking a dusting. So if I was to show you, that's all I've taken off all 4 corners, all 4 sides of the sound box. Make sure there's none left on the blades. If you shave a reed, make sure that you wipe all the excess off. If that gets down in between the blades, it can cause a problem. So That clears very easily now. Another way to free up a reed is to shave from the ramp, which is where the sound box on a reed. If you look at a ridge cut, you've got that ramp that goes down. If you shave there, that frees up a reed, which makes it slightly easier too. So I'm just going to do that for you. Again, I know it would be handy to see this, but just with the camera. So again, we're just taking a dusting. And now I'd have to blow very easy. And then it clears. So those are the areas that I would concentrate on first. Always remember that you can always take more cane off. You can't put cane back on after you've shaven it.
Yes, that's pretty much exactly what I do to shave reeds as well, Alastair. It's funny, shaving reeds is not particularly difficult. Once I learned how to do it, I thought, boy, why was I so afraid to do this before? And I find a lot of pipers are really fearful about shaving reeds. They're afraid they're going to ruin the reed. So they often take a reed that's too hard for them. They're afraid to shave it, so they throw it back in the reed box where it remains for 10 years. I really encourage people to invest a bit of time and money, shave a few reeds, see what happens, and down the road that could save you money by allowing you to use reeds that you might not otherwise have been able to use. Alastair, what do we do with the reed when it becomes too easy? I've always just sort of abandoned them, but is there anything we can do to bring a too easy reed back to life?
So when dealing with an easy reed, there's two different types of mandrels that are widely available. The first one is the one that I prefer, and it's a flat sort of nose on it, and then the other is the traditional sort of poker, which is more sharp. I find with this sort of mandrel with a flat that it fits the eye of the staple better. So I've got a reed here that's when I blow through it will go straight to that clear tone. Very little resistance. It's even squealing there because the mouth opener's just a tad too small. So take it gently and look at the mouth opening, and with the flat mandrel I'm going to insert it into the reed until I can feel some sort of resistance. When I feel that resistance, I'm looking at the mouth opening, and just by pushing it gently you can see the mouth is opened. That's opening up the eye of the staple and the mouth of the reed. Right to that clear tone. You can use the poker style mandrel on the same thing. I like to measure where it's going to sit on the staple. You can see that up to the top of the binding and just a wee bit above. So that's going through the eye of the staple. And then I put my thumb on the mandrel, put the reed on it, and then feel for that resistance again. And then again, just poking through and opening up the eye of the staple on the mouth of the reed. For me, I like this better because it fits the eye of the staple better, and it doesn't wiggle around, whereas this goes through at the highest point, but it can maneuver. There's more sort of wiggle room, whereas this one, there's not. It's quite solid in there. The other way you can do it is if you reverse squeeze it. So looking at the staple, you take your thumb and your forefinger, hold it on the sides of the reed, and I just squeeze to open up the mouth. It's all about getting that mouth open, and that will open up the reed. So as you can hear from earlier on, clears into that nice clear tone. It shows it's still free, but it's a bit harder.
I do find making a reed stronger is a little bit more hit and miss than making a reed easier. Sometimes when I try to make a reed stronger, whether I use the mandrel or the squeezing technique, it doesn't always work and I end up looking for a new reed. Speaking of new reeds, I hear from a lot of pipers that they can't get any more than 2 or 3 or 4 months out of a chanter reed. What's the reason for this, and what's a good method of care to make a chanter reed last you for a year or 2?
The longevity of a reed really comes down to factors of how the reed's being stored, how often it's being played, and how it's being looked after during those playing sessions. If you do a lot of manipulation, pinching and carving of a reed, it will shorten the lifespan of it. You want to make sure that you're giving it time and patience to blow in. Like it's a common thread throughout this interview, is that the reeds need time to settle in. One of the things that has really probably annoyed me over the years is this plug and play. I don't believe any reed is plug and play, and that might be controversial, but you only get out what you put in. You know, I'd rather take the time, blow in a reed, and let it last than look for quick fixes. I have used the dental bands in the past, but again, anything that you do to the blades will shorten the lifespan of that reed. One thing over here for storing a reed is with the heat in the summer is use your knowledge of how things react in the pipe. Whenever you're playing and you've got your box sitting, don't just leave it lying in the sun. I see it all the time going around the games. People will have their spare chanter and reeds lying in a box and the case lid open and just lying in the sun, baking. You really want to look after your reed. A good reed to me is worth tenfold what we pay for them. If you look after a reed, it'll look after you. Other things is whenever you're finished a practice session, make sure that the reed's not going away absolutely soaking wet and going into one of the humidity caps or even into an ordinary cap. Make sure you're putting the reed away slightly dry. You know, look after your gear and it'll look after you.
I would agree with you that reed storage and maintaining some consistency in the humidity level is paramount if you want your reeds to last for a long time. I think that allowing a reed to get wet and then dry out and get wet and dry out is a great way to shorten the length of the life of your reed. Alastair, many of our viewers have probably never seen a reed making operation or know how a reed is made. I wonder if you might be able to give us a 25-cent tour of your reed making operation and show us the various steps involved.
So here we have some of the aspects of making a reed and different stages. So whenever I order cane, it comes to me in a tube form like this. And then it's split into 4 segments and then cut into the length of what a reed will be. From this stage we'll go into the gouging. So we'll gouge it down and put the curve here into the inside of the reed. The further that you gouge to the bark of the reed, the harder the cane's going to be. So sometimes, depending on the cane, that changes. Then we take off the outer bark, which leaves you with a strip like this, with the curve and the flat. That's all done by chisels and gouges. After that stage, it goes through onto shooting blocks with a very sharp chisel. We'll take some more of the outer bark off and we'll cut it into the trapezoid shape, as you can see. So this is the shape of your reed. starting to look more like the product that you have and that we're more used to. After that's been done, it's then cut to thickness. So right now it's at its final thickness of its sound box. That's from the binding up to where the ridge is. We'll then start to profile the reed to put in the ridge. At this point, as you can see, it's very thin. And it's been cut down from the sound box to the lips, and then from the tie-in line to the tail. It becomes quite thin at this point. The tie-in line is the most crucial part. Whenever you're tying a reed in, you do not want to go over the line. The staple's placed right up to that line. So that's what controls the mouth opening of our reeds, which will ultimately control pitch and strength. Two different types of staples. We've got the brass tubing, which is a complete tube, round at one end, and then it's flattened into the eye of the staple. Again, this is the part that really controls the mouth opening. The other type of staple that's used is a folded copper. So you can see where it's got the seam. And you can see the eye. And then again, the round. It's bound round the staple whenever the cane's wet. When the cane's wet, it becomes more pliable, so it'll bind round the staple, and that's when you have to be really careful not to put too much tension on it, so the mouth doesn't open too much. We use this sort of thread. It's not your standard wax thread that you would use for hemp and joints. It's a different type that's selected to give a good secure wrapping where it's airtight. Once it's wrapped, then the binding is shellacked to seal it, and then that's our finished product. So there's a lot of stages in between your raw material and your reed.
That's great, Alastair. Thank you. You managed to give us a little tour of the reed making process without, I hope, giving away too much in the way of your trade secrets. Alastair, thank you very much. It's been great to talk to a reed maker about the process of blowing in reeds and making reeds work and making reeds easier and seeing how they're made. I really appreciate your taking the time to be with us.
Thanks very much, Jim, for having me. It's been fun talking about reeds, and hopefully the folks at home find it educational. The main thing I want people to get out of this is don't be afraid to try to manipulate your reeds, but also think about stuff like storing the reeds and the approach to blowing in a reed. Take your time, and if you do that, if you look after your reeds, the reeds will look after you. So take your time, blow it in, and don't rush to manipulate, but also don't be afraid to manipulate. Again, Jim, thanks very much.
Well, there you have it. That's reed care right from the horse's mouth. Alastair makes the reeds and plays them at a high level, and I appreciate his willingness to turn the camera on and share some of his knowledge and some of his secrets with us. Alastair makes pipe chanter reeds as well as cane drone reeds. His company is called MUR-REED. He has a Facebook page, and you can see his email address here at the bottom of the screen. You'll find other videos on this channel on manipulating reeds. Many years ago I made two lengthy videos, one called Pipes Ready on maintenance and one called Pipes Up on tuning. Both of these videos were sectioned off into short videos on this channel and you will find more than one video there dealing with reed manipulation. Glad you were able to join us for this hopefully educational session, and best of luck working with your own reeds. From me, Jim McGillivray, here at the Pipe Box,